the concepts and the ideas are so translatable, at least to America. Like so many of the ideas were similar that it was scary almost that like it's almost universal just how much of a problem this can be.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I've got Christine Jeffs, the writer, director, and producer of A Mistake, which came to theaters on September 20th, 2024. It is a medical drama about a simple mistake and the consequences that could happen because of it as people try to blame and figure out what to do. It has a fantastic cast, a really wonderful style, and a really great opening and ending. I really enjoyed it, so I'm very excited to talk to you, and thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Of
Appreciate it.
course. Of course. So, this was based on a book. What made you want to turn that book into a movie? What was it about the book that really kind of caught your attention?
Great question. Here's the book. Carl Schucker. He's a star. Um, I love the book. For a start, as a filmmaker, I was looking for a complex female lead character. So Carl's story gave us that with the surgeon, played by Elizabeth Banks. And secondly, I think you always have to have some kind of personal into telling a story. And because I adapted this, I wanted to ask myself, why would I in particular want to tell this story? So through my partner who had a medical misadventure event, I had spent some time in hospitals and ICUs and so on and so forth. And I was really intrigued by that whole world. And because Carl had written with such realism and accuracy as well as drama, I was kind of like, oh, I really feel that this is a really great story to bring to the screen. It's just totally intriguing. And it's about, although it's a medical drama, it's also kind of got thriller elements without being cliched, because it's about one thing that happens after another in this unraveling, and about fallibility. And of course, we all make mistakes. So it had so many kind of themes that I felt were more universal than just inside the medical world. It's about how we are with each other, and it's about tone, and it's about the things that are unsaid sometimes. And because movie making is such a visual, space, I felt like there were things to be explored, nuanced with the performance that were about what isn't said or the spaces in between the dialogue. So I guess, yeah, I saw a wonderful chance to explore some real great stuff.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, did your partner's medical misadventures lead you to finding Carl Jeff's book, or was it just you read Carl Jeff's book and like, I know about this. I can show the nightmare that is the medical industry, and so you just kind of like everything came together for this movie.
Yeah, the book, I read the book actually 3 times, because it's quite a tough, real kind of, it's based on, he's so knowledgeable. So it's like insider information, which I found fascinating. So I came to the book first, and then I was like, yeah, exactly as you said. I was like, oh, this is something which definitely piques my interest. So yeah.
I think what's really interesting also is that like this was filmed at probably I assume in New Zealand. Like I don't think I ever specifically mentioned, but it feels like New Zealand. But like the concepts and the ideas are so translatable, at least to America. Like the idea that the hospital is trying to like skirt blame and they're trying to avoid. The only thing that didn't happen there wasn't a lawsuit. I don't think there was just an inquiry. But so many of the ideas were similar that it was scary almost that like it's almost universal just how much of a problem this can be.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, we don't sue here because we have a public health system, but that's exactly right. I think the themes are very universal, and the relationships and the kind of mystery about life and death, about how can we navigate systems, and how do we become advocates, and yeah, it's just like, it's really interesting territory, but it's not like too cerebral. I mean, I think it's really about relationships in the end. And so, yeah, there's some really interesting journeys and narrative in there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I assume you always were planning on directing this movie. Was that the case? You found the book, you wanted to write the script, but you always had the eye that you were going to direct this movie, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I wrote it for myself to direct. Yeah, that was my plan. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I noticed the book now has a picture of Elizabeth Banks on it. I assume that she wasn't always on there. How did you get Elizabeth involved? Did you have her in mind when you were writing this? Because she was perfect.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I saw her dramatic chops in Call Jane, and I think w when you bring a movie together, there's so many elements that have to coincide. So the first thing is having the screenplay and Elizabeth responding to it and her team, So it's like, would she want to go down this path? Because it's a brave move, and she had to do a lot of quite technical rehearsal and so on and so forth. So I think it's a collision of many events, good luck, and also a passion. Like, people either hook into something or they don't. So she hooked into the material, her team hooked into the material, and then we were talking straight away. So it happened quite quickly. Yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, you almost have to learn an entire new dialogue. I mean, she's used to learning lines, but like learning medical terminology and being able to kind of like recite it like it's second nature must have been really tough to do. Like it's just something you had to, I guess, rehearse over and over to get it to
Yeah, well,
sound right.
for me as well, actually, I was a bit like, whoa, we had an amazing nurse and surgical team which guided us through the accuracies, especially the choreography with the team within the surgery, because it's quite a big set piece. It's like 12 minutes long or something, or it was in the screenplay. I'm not sure exactly how long it is in the film, but around that, 10 or 12. And there's a whole lot of technical choreography, plus, of course, the filmmaking layers, which are using prosthetics, having someone under the prosthetics, whether there's the blood bags in there or not. So it was quite technical, and yeah, the choreography and just getting the techniques right. Elizabeth did a lot of rehearsal in America with Dr. Michael Metzner to actually go through the surgical process. So she knew what she was sort of dealing with, but I was like, whoa, what's a trocar? It's like when I first saw the instruments, I was, yeah, because we had a lot of real stuff there, real scalpels and trocars, and the camera that's inserted into the prosthetic where you actually see the sepsis and so on and so forth. So it's very real, and yeah, it was a challenge, but we were in great and really good hands and really nurtured through it by people who knew what they were doing.
That's awesome. I was gonna ask about that opening because I loved it. Like that opening surgery really kind of like it introduces you to the characters and it gives you so much insight into like Elizabeth's character and then the Richard character without having to like spell it out, which I love. I love when it's just like you can see that she's really good, that she's a pro, that she's calm under pressure, but you don't have to like say any of that. And then it looked fantastic. I was gonna ask how you got the body footage, but I guess it was just really good prosthetics.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, really good. That's right. And layers to it, like having different layers to be able to put over Acacia, who played the woman who was going through the surgery and so on. And it was quite complicated, as you can imagine, because she couldn't have the prosthetic on her all the time because it was heavy. So we had to keep pulling her in and out, and all those kind of things that go into technically filmmaking and creating something that feels real. And I know when I saw it at the film festival in New Zealand, it was so real. In fact, there were people in the audience that had medical events. So it is quite, if you're a little bit squeamish, it is, yeah, quite visceral.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. One thing I loved also about this movie is it just had this like dark, almost like oppressive look to it. Like everything that was going on in her life was kind of visualized in the cinematography. That's not how I think of New Zealand. I think of New Zealand as like beautiful and bright. And I know some of your past films like Sunshine Cleaning deal with dark subject matter, but had like a brighter tone. How did you kind of get that look? Because it really gets you like it lets you feel the emotion and feel what is happening to Liz's character, like without having to say anything else.
Yeah, well, John Toon, our cinematographer, used some. Thank you for noticing his work. I mean, he did amazing work, and art department and so on, tonally. And I think it's choosing locations, choosing places that feel. For example, the space at the end of the film, the the house for me is like the prow of a ship, and the wind's coming in outside, and you're being you can see the trees blowing, and you get the sense of them being at a precipice of something in a way, and that's symbolized visually, but very simply and subtextually. So, yeah, the mood, I mean, John used some antique lenses and things like that were imperfect. And of
Nice.
course, some of the choices of some of the scenes in the ferry had a kind of a psychological bubble kind of feel to them. Although they were outside, they were kind of oppressive feeling. There's the window, and you can't quite reach the real world. It's outside windows, or it's yeah. In that situation, she was in this sort of psychological bubble, and of course, that's where she gets some uh, every time she's on the ferry, there's psychological things happening. So I think that maybe adds to the layer of tension, even though we're sort of just dealing with the visuals through there, as opposed to sort of like an actual intense sequence of dialogue or whatever. Definitely it comes through in the visual layering in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there's definitely a lot of tension, like you said, that's unsaid in this movie. You just kind of like can feel it from everything happening that you don't have to like specifically spell it out, which I love. I love when a film does that, when it trusts the viewers to be able to kind of like come to these conclusions without needing to hold their hand. So
Thank you. Yeah. When I was at Tribeca, I was really excited because the audience got very vocal and they were yelling out in a few places in reaction to some of the things the characters said.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun.
And so Elizabeth is obviously the biggest star, but maybe the second biggest star. Where did you find this dog? That dog was adorable, even though didn't have a ton of screen time. Like, where did you find this dog? And like, what was that part of the book too? Was the like dog sub storyline part of the book also?
Yeah, yes, it was. And the funny thing is, I'm not sure if you're going to believe me, but I found the dog walking down a local beach, and I thought, oh, that dog would be great. And I got chatting to the person leading the dog. Her name was Rocky, and she's an intensive care nurse.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And I was like, oh, we're doing this medical movie. Your dog looks great. Is it a good dog? And she was like, oh yeah, easy. Old dog, easy. And then I was like, oh, can I talk to you about intensive care nursing? And she came on, and she was one of our nursing consultants, and she brought a dog along.
That's
So
awesome. Two birds with
yeah,
one stone. I love it.
sometimes it's like that in independent movies, right?
Yeah, no, you gotta maximize everything, right? So, the more you can double up, the better. The less logistics you have to deal with.
Yeah.
I also love the like conflict. I don't know what you would call it, but I thought it was like Yelp for doctors, like this idea that the public should get information, but then as Liz's character brings up, like there's other aspects that you need to look into. I thought that was a really interesting conflict, and kind of like hearing the debate was an important part of this too. Is
Really.
that something that's happening in New Zealand? Is that something that is becoming common, or is that just something from the book?
This is transparency of surgeons' results you're talking about. Yeah, no, reporting is not happening in New Zealand, but as Carl said to me, it could happen at any time, and it does happen in other countries. So it was a great idea to bring that in and kind of look at the ramifications, because it did allow a debate about consent, transparency, how much you know about the track record of the people in the team, and all these kind of things, which a layperson is obviously would be really interested in. And quite often, and like you say, you hear both sides of the story, because as a general surgeon, Elizabeth is like, I don't know who I'm going to get to operate on. I just do stuff like I'm an emergency surgery. And the ethicist is like, well, maybe sometimes it's best not to operate. And hearing these things about sort of the politics of the bureaucracy of the medical system, and hearing arguments from both sides is really interesting. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of narrative, which I think is great to, like you say, bring out into conversation, because it's like about the ethics of medical misadventure, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like the amazing thing about it is like I don't know what the right answer is. I don't think anyone does, because it's like,
Yeah.
yes, more information is good, but then also the arguments that, Liz and the other doctors raise are very important too. Like, I don't know who I'm operating on. I don't know what their history is. Like, am I going to not take a surgery because it's a high risk surgery? Like that seems wrong. But
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the word complications, as she sort of says when she's with the family, and that kind of like understanding those kind of spaces, like of shock and grief, and is the surgeon present or not present, like, I mean, emotionally, that's part of the storyline as well. So yeah, it's got lots of layers.
yeah, for sure. Now, you mentioned the film was shown at Tribeca. It is now out in theaters. It came out in theaters in September 20th, 2024. what has the reaction been like? I assume it's been positive, but what has it been like seeing people's reactions, and what has the reaction to the film been like?
Well, at Tribeca, it was because that was the only time I was actually kind of present, as it were. It was thrilling, and again in New Zealand it was thrilling. I mean, I've had a lot of people come up and just want to talk and talk and talk about it, and said that they've talked about it with their friends and their family and so on. So everyone's got something I think they can bring of their own lives and relate to in terms of the conversations that might come out of, the movie. So it's
For
great
sure.
from that point of view.
That's awesome. That is awesome, but also, maybe a little sad. Everyone has a story like this, but I guess, when you're
Yeah.
dealing with sickness and surgery, you're going to have these kinds of stories because, like you said, things happen. You don't know what the patient's like. Mistakes happen. So this is just, something that
Yeah.
feels universal.
And yeah, and of course, it's about it is quite, I mean, it's not overly cathartic, but it's also has uh there's a sense of restorative conversation, which I think is really important. Obviously, in terms of the journey that Elizabeth goes on, like she's transformed. So I think that's really important as well in terms of how she is with the family. And I don't want to give too much away, but um, that was a really important note for me to finish on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love, I'm again not going to give too much away, but I love how like it does feel like she went through this journey, but I also love how it felt like she stayed true to her character and like didn't just capitulate at the end. So I love
Oh,
that
thank
aspect,
you.
like that emotional. I rewatched that part like 3 times. I love just the way that conversation happened at the end.
I know. Well, she goes, I won't give too much away, but she goes 3 words. She says, yes, yes, yes. And it's like, it's such a simple thing, but it's like you can just see her actually really caring, really present, and really, really listening. And so it's embedded within the way she says that one word, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I know we have limited time. I know this is international, so I'm gonna switch to, I call it the lightning round. They're just lightweight questions about the film, as lightweight as they can be in this film. I want to see how your personal experiences map to things in the movie. Feel free to skip any of them. I will not be offended, but I try to keep them very answerable. First question: did you ever want to be a doctor?
No.
All right, that's a quick answer. What was the last time that you had surgery? You can feel free to skip it. I was curious.
Um, oh, not in recent memory, probably like when I was like 21. So a long
That
time ago.
that's awesome.
Not recently memorable.
That's great. Great. A relatively hospital-free life. I assume you didn't check reviews before having that surgery back when you were 21.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think they existed then.
Have you ever had a surgery that went wrong? Probably not if it's been that long, but maybe you had some bad surgeries when you were a kid.
No, but I have my partner has, and people I know have. So um yeah, if you start chatting about this, you'll find many people have stories to tell. So
Yeah, no, definitely. That's why this feels so sadly universal, but I guess everyone can relate to it. Have you ever had to pet sit?
the what, sorry?
Pet sit, like watch someone's pet while they're gone.
Oh, pets it.
Yeah, sorry, pet sit.
Have I ever had to pet sit? Um, well, I'm an animal person, so um, I mean, I've had a lot of animals in my life, and I do really look out for other people's animals. So I guess in a way, yes.
All right,
Yeah,
perfect. And I
yeah.
think I think I'm gonna know the answer to this one, but have you ever had to put a pet down? If you're an animal person, you probably have, which is, one of the saddest days of
Well,
your life. But
yeah. I actually the scene in the film is I'll try and keep this short, but the scene in the film is actually directly inspired by the feeling in it when she goes, tell her, when the vet says, tell her she's a good dog, is exactly what the vet said to me when I had to put my dog down.
oh
So it's
wow,
very
yeah,
traumatic watching that. My dog, yeah, so we've been without our dog for a year now, and I'm dying to get another one. But yeah, of course I have had, if you love animals, then you're going to lose animals. That's just the way it is. So yeah, sadly.
No, that makes sense. I think everyone can relate to that too, sadly. Um, what is the strangest thing you have found in your walls?
Woo! Uh I guess kind of like this is going to sound kooky, but crazy. But right now, there's a plant growing up from outside the house, inside the house, and I've kind of left it there as an ornament to strangeness. I'm like, how did this thing get through the concrete wall? And where's the crack? And why is it coming inside the house? So it's like some weird thing that's it's just like a little green plant, and I've left it there. So that's pretty strange.
That is very strange. I mean, yeah, why does it want to come into the house? The house has like nothing it wants. But hey,
I know, right?
you get free oxygen, so there you go.
That's weird.
And the last question, when was the last time you had to apologize for a mistake?
Every day.
Excellent. Keep your slate clean. Keep your conscience clean. That's perfect.
Yeah, I'm always stepping on someone's toes.
There you go. That's a better way to live your life, as this movie shows. Just, lay it out in the air and you'll be fine.
Ooh.
So the film is out already. It came to theaters on September 20th, 2024. You are out promoting it, getting the word out. But after people see a mistake, are there anything they can look forward to you from you? Do you have anything coming up on the horizon?
Oh, nothing immediately because I'm just looking after a mistake coming out and having a little break because it's so intense making a movie. And yeah, just really reading and thinking. And yeah, I'm not sure what's next.
All right, yeah, no, that makes sense, especially like promoting the movie. Like, you were in Tribeca, like out getting the word out. So that must be exhausting on top of making the movie, which is also exhausting. So yeah, a well-earned break. We will all wait to see what comes next from you. But first, check out A Mistake, which came to theaters on September 20th, 2024. This is Christine Jeffs, the writer and director and producer of the film. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, David. Really enjoyed the chat. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.